Doesn't that feel better? So, then of course the rumor would go out the next year, oh, when you go to his class, do you know what he's going to do? That I am an intuitive man. So they would come in and they would sit in the back, and I would, oh no, they would sit in the front, thinking that I was going to take the guys in the back and move them to the front and put them in the back. But I knew, and I would leave them right where they were. So, you know, we have to be, what's the old saying, wise as serpents.
Doves, lambs.
But meek as lambs. Yeah, there we are. True Christianity has to be lived. And you know, even from in the history of the church, East and West, for hermits, no one was ever allowed to leave a monastery to become a hermit unless he loved people. The brotherhood and his abbot had to agree to this. So I remember after Vatican II, one of my friends, Father Ambrose, who was a Camaldolese monk, told me that one of the first things they decided they were going to do after Vatican II was they had to reform their hermitage. Because as Camaldolese monks at Big Sur, they were living as hermits, literally. They each had their own cell. The priest monks had a cell with a chapel. Another monk would come to serve for the mass, the private mass in that little cell. Their food was put through a door, a little opening with a turnstile. They never left for a whole week until Sunday liturgy. And the superior there told me, he says, now we have to bring them out. He said, what do you do when you've got a whole group that join because this is the way they wanted to live? So what they decided to do from that point on is that they had to have a different way of accepting who was going to come in. And that's the way we've always done it, you know. If somebody comes and, oh, Father, I want to be a monk. I want to be ascetic. I want to live away from the world. I want to live in my cell. I want to, you know. First of all, what job have you been doing all these years? And does your priest recommend you? Because I don't want someone that's running from the world, because a monastery is a microcosm of the world. You can't run from the world and join a monastery. It doesn't work. And people that visit our monastery, I hear this all the time. People love all of the monks at our monastery. All of them. And they see from our monks people who are loving them and greeting them as Christ, which is what we're supposed to do. And so that's how we have to do it with the society that we are living within. You in the South have less of a problem because so many people are churchgoers. But I can tell you it's creeping in here too. Unbelief and anti-Christian sentiment. I've had it to hear about people using the excuse that, oh, well, look at all the pedophile scandal in the Roman Catholic Church. One of my jobs for 8 years as a prison chaplain was working at Twin Rivers Correctional. Over 3,000 inmates. And they're all sex offenders. All of them. And let me tell you, I saw Jews with with the, what do you call them? Yarmulkes. I saw Muslims. I saw grandpas, and I saw young men. The gamut, over 3,000 of them. Some of them were so dangerous that even as a chaplain, I was not allowed to go to certain parts of that prison. At the big house where we had criminals that were lifers, I could go anywhere, but not over here. That's how dangerous some of them were. It was very enlightening for me to see. But I can also tell you statistically, the Boy Scouts have the same problem. Universities and hospitals have the same problem. The Southern Baptist Convention has the same problem. But we don't read about it. That is not an excuse for abandoning Christianity. It's not an excuse. You know, I saw a sign once. It was about this big. It was in front of a Protestant church. And it said, people say that the church is full of hypocrites. There's still room. Where should we be? The church is a hospital for the soul. It's where we take our diseased selves for healing. So we don't turn anyone away. We shouldn't. And least of all, we don't keep ourselves away from this hospital. And as the priests, we are the therapists in this hospital. I put myself between college and graduate school. I worked 3 years as an orderly in a trauma center in Portland, Oregon, in an emergency room. And I can tell you that we didn't have somebody brought in by an aid car all bloody from an auto accident or a shooting and say, oh, Chair, well, this isn't the place for him. Take him somewhere else. People don't go to the Fred Hutchins Cancer Research Center in Seattle and say, I've got cancer. My doctor just told me I have cancer. I'm sorry. You have to go somewhere else. We're the Fred Hutchins Cancer Research Center. We don't want people like you. And yet that's what we're saying when we make some people unwelcome in our churches. Oh, well. We can't do that. That's why when I go into the grocery store and I see a burly transgender that's taller than I and could take me down in an arm wrestling, even though I lift weights, I don't turn my eyes. I greet this person as Christ would treat them, with love and respect. There was one transgender that was like that, big, former football player with the college team, and broad shoulders, and probably that much taller than I, and all of a sudden, this guy becomes Tara, with more makeup than any 5 women on Vashon Island have worn in 1 year, on that one face, with very long purple glue-on fingernails. And I mean, there's no way that this is a real woman, and it's obvious. But I always treated Tara with respect and with a kind word. Even though behind her back, I told Father Paul, I said, I just saw Tara gargantuan today. She's so big. But it's not my place to judge anyone. It's my place to image Christ to everyone. That's what we do with our faith. If we don't do that, our faith is not real. It's not real.
I think we have a break for just a few minutes, just to stretch your legs, go to the bathroom if you need to, and come back. I want you back in 10 minutes, if you can be. And then we'll resume our talk until about, for the next 45 minutes, with questions and answers, and finish, other comments, other remarks. All right, so let's take a little break. You need to go to the bathroom?
Nope.